Let's talk about the surprisingly intense battle happening behind the scenes of your prescriptions. It's this world of high stakes legal gambles, intense strategy, and a real race against the clock. And it all determines when we get access to lower cost medicines. You probably think it's a pretty simple waiting game, right? A patent expires, and boom, cheaper versions just pop up on the shelves. But the reality? Oh, it is so much more complicated than that. It's actually a strategic legal fight that kicks off years, sometimes many years, before a patent is even close to running out. So who are the main players in this game? Well, in one corner, you've got the innovator company. They're the ones who poured millions, sometimes billions, into research and development to bring a new brand name drug to life. And in the other corner, you have the generic company. Their entire goal is to create what's called a bioequivalent, basically a chemically identical, lower-cost version for all of us. Okay, so like any high-stakes game, this one has a very specific set of rules. You got to know the rules to understand how it's played. So let's dive into the rulebook. And that rulebook is officially called the Orange Book. Seriously, it's maintained by the FDA, and it's the master list of all approved drugs and, most importantly, all the patents that protect them. You can think of it as the public battlefield where every company can see exactly which patents they might have to challenge one day.
Now here's where it gets really interesting. Let's talk about the primary weapon a generic company uses to go on the offense and challenge a patent head-on way before it's set to expire. It's a bold legal move, and it's called a Paragraph 4 certification.
See, when a generic company files its application with the FDA, they have to make a declaration, a certification, about the brand name drug's patents. The first three are pretty straightforward. There's no patent, the patent's already expired, or it's going to expire on a specific date. But that fourth option, that's the gambit. That's when they declare that the innovator's patent is either invalid or that their new generic version won't infringe on it. It's a direct challenge, a shot across the bow. So why make such a risky, aggressive move? Well, the prize is huge. We're talking 180 days of market exclusivity. For 6 months, they get to be the only generic version of that drug on the market. That's a massive financial incentive. And as soon as that challenge is filed, a clock starts ticking. The innovator, the brand name company, has just 45 days to decide whether to file a lawsuit for patent infringement. And if they do sue, well, that triggers an automatic 30-month stay. It's like hitting a giant pause button. It blocks the FDA from approving the generic for up to 2.5 years, buying the brand name company a whole lot of precious, profitable time. So with all this talk of expensive legal warfare, you're probably thinking this stuff is only reserved for the big blockbuster drugs, right? The ones that make billions in sales. Well, let's go ahead and bust that very common myth. The conventional wisdom for years has been that generic companies only chase the absolute biggest prizes, drugs with annual sales north of $500 million. And it seems logical, right? You go where the biggest money is. But the data tells a totally different story. Take a look at Vanoss. It's a cream with annual sales of around $51 million. Now, that's a respectable number, for sure, but in the pharma world, that is far from a blockbuster. And yet, it's still attracted Paragraph 4 challenges from at least 4 different generic companies. So here's the reality. The landscape for generics has become so incredibly competitive that, honestly, no product is considered too small anymore. Today, even drugs with sales under $20 million are seen as fair game for these aggressive patent challenges. All right, on to our next myth. And this one reveals a really fundamental misunderstanding about when this high-stakes race actually gets started. A lot of people, even folks inside the pharmaceutical industry, believe that the first sign of trouble for a brand name drug is when that notification letter arrives. The first official signal that a generic company is gearing up for a legal assault. But here's the truth. That legal filing isn't the starting gun, not even close. It's actually much closer to the finish line. By the time the lawyers are officially involved, the race to create that generic alternative has already been going on quietly for years. So if the lawsuit isn't the beginning, then what is? Let's pull back the curtain and look at the actual timeline of generic drug development to see where this race truly kicks off. This timeline really shows the true sequence of events. Years before any patent challenge is filed, the first most critical step for any generic company is to find a reliable source for the drug's active pharmaceutical ingredient, or API. That's the core component, the magic ingredient that actually makes the drug work. Everything else,
The formulation, the testing, and eventually the legal filing, all of that comes later.
The blockbuster sleep aid Lunesta is a perfect example. The first legal filing from a competitor came in early 2009, but if you dig a little deeper, you find that their manufacturing partner for the API was filing process patents for that drug's key ingredient all the way back in June of 2005. That's more than 3 years earlier. Think about that for a second. So the real first move isn't made in a courtroom. It's made in labs and manufacturing plants around the world. Tracking the activity around a drug's API, that is the earliest and by far the most reliable indicator that generic competition is coming down the pike. Okay, so what should you take away from all this? First, the Paragraph IV patent challenge is a calculated, high-stakes gambit with a massive potential prize. Second, competition is absolutely fierce, and it's targeting drugs of all sizes now, not just the billion-dollar blockbusters. And maybe most importantly, the race to market starts years before any lawsuit is filed, kicking off with the hunt for that core ingredient, the API.
And that really raises a final important question, doesn't it? In this incredibly complex game of legal strategy and deep science, winning isn't just about reacting to a lawsuit. It's about foresight. It's about knowing who is quietly, strategically positioning their pieces on the board years and years in advance.